Hello, my dear friends. Father Diego here with the meditation for today's Gospel. Today is the second Sunday of Easter, second Sunday of Ordinary Time. I'm messing up here the different liturgical seasons. Remember, the last Sunday we finished the celebration of Christmas season with Epiphany, and then on Monday with the celebration of the baptism of the Lord. Christmas season is over, right? Now, this ordinary time is called ordinary time because the liturgy doesn't focus on any specific event of the life of Jesus. It's just, his ministry in general, right? And it's divided into two sections. From this Sunday up to the Sunday before Ash Wednesday, we have 5 Sundays of ordinary time. And then after Lent and Easter, right, we count 33 more weeks of ordinary time, and finishing with the celebration, the solemnity of Jesus Christ, King of the universe, and then we started over with the season of Advent. All right. So, in today's gospel, we listen from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 35 to 42. I'm not going to read the whole gospel, just the first verses. We'll listen. John was standing with 2 of his disciples, and as he watched Jesus walk by, he said, "Behold, the Lamb of God." The 2 disciples heard what he said and followed Jesus. Jesus turned and saw them following him and said to them, "What are you looking for?" They said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and you will see." So they went and saw where Jesus was staying, and they stayed with him that day. Very well. So in today's gospel, we listen to the Gospel of John, the first call of the disciples, so the first calling of Jesus' disciple, which is interesting and is different from the synoptical gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because differently from those gospels, in the Gospel of John, the first disciples are not fishing, right? Actually, they have another teacher, another master, which is John the Baptist. But by John's testimony about Jesus, because what he said about Jesus, they kind of switch masters, teachers. What is this testimony? John says something very interesting. "Behold, the Lamb of God," right? It refers to the Paschal lamb that is offered as a sacrifice when God freed the Israelites from slavery back in the book of Exodus, the event that is commemorated by the Jewish people every year in the celebration of Passover, right? So this designation recalls also the prophet Isaiah's description of the suffering servant of Israel, right? These beautiful canticles of the suffering servant of Israel, right? And in using this name for Jesus, this title, the Lamb of God, John the Baptist predicts also Jesus' passion and death and the new interpretation of the celebration of the Passover, the Jewish Passover, with Jesus' Last Supper, right? So a different meaning, designating Jesus as the Lamb of God, right? And then we added to this title in the liturgical prayer, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world," right? A beautiful description. And then after John saying, or referring Jesus as the Lamb of God, Jesus asks to these disciples, "What are you looking for?" Right? An interesting question, right? I think is one of the most interesting questions in the Gospel of John. What are you looking for? And then answering that question, one of those disciples says, "Where are you staying?" And then Jesus invites them to stay with them, and they stayed with him, says the Gospel, that day. So according to this question, I like to see discipleship, the following of Jesus Christ, as a constant discernment about what are we looking for, right? Which is a discernment of our intention. Every relationship has an intention, and the clearer we have that intention, the better and the healthier the relationship, right? So maybe at the beginning of their spiritual journey, the first disciples were just curious about Jesus. Who is this guy? Or probably they wanted to learn a little bit more about the Torah, the sacred scriptures, or how to be better Jewish, more faithful to the law of Moses, and so on, right? But at the school of Jesus, they will learn something interesting about God's plan of salvation, right? What is the path of salvation according to Jesus' teaching? And most importantly, how to be human beings according to God's design and desired, right? So the School of Jesus teaches us to listen carefully to God's voice, as in the first reading. Today we listen from the first book of Samuel, the calling of Samuel, 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 and Eli kind of confused. What is going on with this kid? Anyway, so go back to the first reading in today's readings, the first book of Samuel, the calling of Samuel. So in the School of Jesus, going back to the gospel, in the School of Jesus, we will learn how to listen carefully and obediently to God's voice, how to understand God's voice, and of course, how to obey His will, which is always a will of salvation, right? A will of salvation in our lives. So before following Jesus, or while we follow Jesus, because we already are following Jesus, we need to ask ourselves constantly, what is my intention in following Jesus? And why this is important to me? I think this is a good starting point for this ordinary time, right? Asking that question. What are you looking for? Have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful week with a cup of coffee, and I'll see you next Sunday. Cheers. Bye now.